So welcome to the Finjan Show. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm really honored and delighted to have our guest today, Lawrence Jackson. And thank you so much, Lawrence, for making the time to be with us today.
Thank you for the opportunity, Faris. I am totally excited and ready to dig in.
Yeah, well, me too. I'm like, I've known you for so long, and I'm like, there's so much I want to learn about you, Lawrence. And I know a little bit that I'm gonna try to bring the little I know out, but I'm sure there'll be a lot more to dig through. So my first question, Lawrence, maybe you could tell just the audiences here, what is it that you do and who you are?
Absolutely. I am what's called a financial strategist. I have a company called the Emerging Enterprise Group. We started it back in 2004, and it was really initially a group to just simply do training and to facilitate my tax preparation business. But it's grown into something much more, much different than how it started, because now I provide strategies for individual businesses that are looking for lending or need help with projections, as well as I'm a trainer for ProsperUs Detroit. I do a lot of training for the Great Lakes Women's Business Council. So, and then on top of all of that, I do some work at TechTown Detroit as well. So I'm a busy guy.
It sounds like you have a lot of time on your hand. That's
absolutely
awesome. So let's back up for a second. 2004, you
Yes.
starting a business. So you've been doing this for a long time, and I'm sure you had to live through those speed bumps, I call them, those pandemics, and latest one is COVID that we're still living through. But 2008, 2000. There are a couple of them that we went through this process. Just would love to hear, Lawrence, what kept you going? Why did you want, first of all, why did you want to do this versus getting a job? Because if you had a strategy for finance, sounds like a really awesome job somewhere with a big hefty salary, and you chose to take this venture on your own.
Yeah, and that's a good question, Faris. What happened at that time was I was working with a bank. I had worked for several banks actually, and they kept laying me off. And the last time I got laid off was from a small bank in Detroit, and I had actually grabbed a contract that I was working on while I was at the bank, and that contract required that I have a business. So I kind of stumbled my way into being in business, but I didn't want to get laid off again. So I started to really work hard to make sure that the contract I got it was actually from the Michigan State Housing Development Authority. I was chosen to run the Contractors Assistance Program. So I started coordinating that program, and surprisingly, it helped pay all the bills. I really didn't miss a beat after I had gotten laid off. So it was that type of situation, and I was learning more and more about running a business. I had done a few business plans for an organization called Paperplast, which was an auto manufacturing company in Detroit. And I had done a couple of business plans, but I really hadn't gotten my arms around it the way that I do now. I don't do many business plans now. I strictly work on the financial aspects of business plans, but that's how I got started. So yeah, I still looked for some employment to kind of fill in some small gaps, but I haven't turned back, man, since I started this Emerging Enterprise Group in 2004.
That's amazing. And it's really unique in a way, Lawrence, because most times entrepreneurs either have no choice or want to do it, right? So usually I always tell people, from my perspective, entrepreneurship is either you had to do it or you chose to do it. And in your case, it sounded like you had both of them actually, in a way, right? You had to do it, and you chose to do it because you don't want to get laid off. So
right. Yeah,
it's a very powerful, cool thing.
Yeah, and I know you know this about me, Faris. My word is my bond. So I had actually worked for that Contractors Assistance Program without pay for several months. Because I had given my word to potential participants that the program would take place. And even though at that particular time, MISTA was not able to pay me because there wasn't a contract in place, I actually made sure that that particular cohort got started, and we saw it all the way through the end. So.
Yeah, no, and thank you for sharing that. Now I know why we get along so long, because unfortunately I'm in the same boat a lot of times. You just, if you say you're going to do something, you just do it, and then you just have the trust and faith that it's going to come through. And if it doesn't, obviously, there's no one forced you to do it. So
Right,
I'm lucky to have them come through, and I'm sure it sounds like you have been in the same boat, or I've been in the same boat as you. Either way.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, Lawrence, this is, I clearly we could keep you here for days, just, to unfold some of these ideas. I want to take us, to a couple of more questions that maybe could also unfold some other ideas for the listeners here. What I'd like to do is maybe take a small break, and we'll be right back after this short message.
Sounds good. All right.
All right, welcome back. And it's really an honor to have Lawrence with us today, speaking about his journey as an entrepreneur and sharing his insights. Lawrence, one of the things that you mentioned, and I heard you say that you filled in sometimes a little bit of gaps or a little bit of fillers for a couple of, jobs. It sounded like, the ups and downs, maybe some of them were harder than others. And I always have learned this from many entrepreneurs in the past. Entrepreneurship is high and as low, and sometimes it's the same second.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You get a big contract, you're excited, and you're like, how am I going to do it?
Right, exactly. So
you really have
been there.
Or the other way around, right? You lose a big thing and you're like, now what? And then something else comes up, an email pops, I'm like, we've been looking to talk to you and would love to connect with you. So it's just you never know.
Yeah, and I think to your point, Faris, you have to keep your faith very strong. You have to really always believe that things are going to work out, but not just believe, but you got to work towards it. They say you got to make sure that you work with your faith. So that's very important as well.
Yeah, I think one of the other entrepreneurs in the past told me that you do what you do so you could believe what you do.
There we go.
And once you do that, it becomes really clear that you don't need to believe it. You've been doing it. So now you just have to believe it, because it's not like you believe that you had to do it. No, you actually been doing it. So you just need to believe that you are doing it.
That's right.
So Lawrence, would you mind sharing with us like one of your highest moments, or maybe one of your lowest moments, or either one or both?
I think I'll start with the lowest moment. One of my lowest moments was I was running a SBA 504 program, and I was working downriver, and it was just difficult. When I first took that process on, I looked at the board and I'm thinking, I got all these bankers on the board. We're gonna do more SBA 504 loans than anybody in the country. I was really pumped up, but as it turned out, we didn't get the type of response that we were looking for, and also there were some things that were required that made it difficult. It wasn't like lending with a bank where you got a loan committee that you have to convince, and et cetera. Some of those elements were there, but it was the legislation that was tied to those loans. And man, that was tough. It was really tough. And then I ended up, speaking of getting laid off, losing that contract and having to move on. So that was tough, but I actually posted on my Facebook page that I was entering a time in my life where I was really, really, I guess since we're talking about faith, I said I was really, really going to have to lean on my faith. And thank God I made it through. So yeah, that was one of my lowest points. I got a lot of different high points, man. It's kind of hard to pick one. But I would say, oh man, well, this is kind of not totally related to my own business, but when I finish, I'm also a musician, Faris, and I spent 5 years writing music and trying to finish my first and only CD. So when I finished that CD, that was a very, very high point. I mean, that was kind of a avocation, if you will, but it still was something that rings in my mind as very, very high point. And it's just a demonstration of, when you stick to something, even no matter how long it takes, sometimes it takes longer than you might anticipate. And I guess I'll add one more high point is when I won the trainer of the year in my first year as a trainer for ProsperUs. And unfortunately, I had gotten ill and I couldn't go to the ceremony. So I didn't even know I won until about a week or so after that ceremony was over. So those are some high points.
Yeah, and thank you so much for sharing those two, actually, because one of the things I usually want to make sure that we bring up in this conversation, a lot of times entrepreneurs, or I might call them aspiring entrepreneurs, think it's all about the money. And then clearly from your answer, this wasn't really about the money in both cases, right? This was all about, the achievements and what you set yourself to do and the rewards that you get out of it was not necessarily financials. It might have been more self-rewarding or self-fulfilling.
Yes,
I think that's so
absolutely.
powerful for you to share with us. So thank you so much for bringing that in to the conversation that, sometimes could be a personal journey, because when you're an entrepreneur, unfortunately, work and life work balance, I say there is none. I always tell people you just it's always moving up and down because you just don't want it to be tipped in one place all the time.
That's
And
right. That's right.
clearly you've been able to manage to keep it balancing.
Yes.
Maybe one week 120 hours, and next week maybe only 80 hours.
Yeah, maybe only, yes, right, only 80. I get it.
This is
Yes.
awesome. So
Yeah.
Lawrence, there definitely there's more to dig with you. My question to you, what would you, now that you've been doing this since 2004, it's a long time, what would you tell someone that's starting today, looking back on what you've learned from your own journey?
Absolutely. The first thing I would tell an individual is to take advantage of the resources that are available, and talk to people like you, like Faris, and explore what's on your website, those kind of things, because there's a lot of people that have already been through a particular path, and the information they are willing to share with you could be valuable to you and help you to not possibly make some mistakes that they may have made. So that's one thing. The other thing is take your time and be very, very deliberate about what you do. Don't rush because of money. Now, that's easy to say, it's harder to execute, but I want people to understand that if you provide a great product, people will buy it from you, but you have to be prepared for success. And if you rush through trying to, just trying to grab the money, I got to get this done because, there's this or that out there, then oftentimes you miss steps. And those are steps that you are going to have to revisit at some point in time. And it may cause you to lose a bigger contract because you didn't take your time. And then the last thing I would say to anyone is find people that will support you. And what I mean by that is find a team, people that can help you with things. Don't be afraid to let go of certain things. I know a lot of entrepreneurs, they are, I'll use finances, for example. They try to do it themselves and they might get a good start, but 6 months down the road, I'm more focused on, I got to execute the contract I just got, so I don't have time to do the accounting work, or I don't have time to document and organize my financial transactions. And that's just one area. That can happen in marketing, that can happen in management, that certainly can happen in operations. So you need to take some time and find people that you can rely on. I realize it's a trust issue and it's hard to trust, but stay in there. It's okay to use a terminology. I hear some of my single lady friends say they kissed a lot of frogs. So you might have to kiss a lot of frogs in order to get to that prince or the position that you're trying to get to be successful in business. So those would be my three pieces of advice.
Wow. So what a journey, Lawrence. I'm going to try to, summarize some of this awesomeness that you have dropped here. So first, you started in 2004 with an amazing journey. Although you've had some for your ups or downs, you really just kept on going and having that faith and believe, doing to believe in what you're doing by doing it, and which you started that way actually. And then it sounded like, looking back, you could, trying to make sure, as you said, you can sometimes perfect it because you have no choice because you need money. But if you could make it right and spend the time and the energy to make sure it's correct, it could potentially allow you to be in a better place as you continue to grow the business. What amazing nuggets. I mean, we need to have you like for an hour so we could do like maybe a whole workshop with you on your journey, and then of course all the resources that you're managing at at TechTown. That's a whole nother chapter we haven't even touched yet. So
Yes.
that amazing resource for the community in Detroit to come and connect with you in both places. So Lawrence, thank you so much for joining us. I really want to say thanks a lot for being here. I appreciate you, and we'll talk soon. Thank you.
All right. The feeling is mutual, Faris, and thank you for the opportunity. And I'm looking forward to coming back and speaking with you again.